Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining us today. I'm sure we'll have more people joining us in the next couple of minutes, but I think let's get started. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Bijoy, and I am the brand manager for Lenbrook, which comprises of Bluesound Resi, NAD, and PSB speakers. So today we are doing a quick walkthrough session of the new BluOS Configuration Utility, which was unleashed early this year at ISE in Barcelona. So just to give you an overview of what the utility does. So as of this moment, or as of today, the biggest highlight here is none of our competitors have actually developed or designed a tool like this, which is specifically designed for integrators like you all. So this particular tool is just a tool which basically helps in deploying BluOS devices much easier and efficient. So all the way from the device setup to feature activations to firmware updates, diagnostics, and even troubleshooting and long-term maintenance, all these things can be managed centrally from this utility tool, regardless of the number of devices that's there on the BluOS ecosystem. So as you all know, BluOS supports up to 64 zones or 64 different players on the ecosystem. So you get to manage all 64 players from a centralized utility tool, which makes your life, our life, everyone's life much easier, and now makes it much efficient for all of us. So I'm not here to spill the beans, and I'm sure we have Paul from TSS who will actually lead this particular session. So if you've got any questions, feel free to ask us, or feel free to interrupt during the session, or if possible, if you're in a noisy environment, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box that's there on this webinar. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Paul. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Bijoy touched on, my name is Paul. I work within the Technical Sales and Support Department in Amber Technology. I've been providing support for the BluOS ecosystem for over 10 years now. So I am going to just take back one of the comments that Bijoy said just then. If we can just leave all the questions to the end. Just put your questions in the meeting chat. The overall demonstration of the program isn't long at all, so we'll be able to get to questions pretty quickly. But yeah, I am going to share my screen now. Okay, so when you first open up the program, you'll be presented with a player dashboard. And in the player dashboard, much like using the BluOS controller, as long as the laptop computer that you're using with the BluOS configuration utility is on the same network as your BluOS players, you'll be able to populate everything here automatically, or just hit this refresh button and it will populate all the players that it can see. So there's a lot of information when you're first presented and when you first open the program, but luckily for all of us, there is a guided setup. So I will go through the guided setup, but I just want to note that within the guided setup, I've already done a couple of the key requirements that it asks you to do, as you'll be able to see here. Within the guided setup, before you begin, make sure all devices are connected via Ethernet or have been connected using the Wi-Fi setup. So I will quickly show you what the Wi-Fi setup looks like now. I don't have any players that are in hotspot mode at the moment, but if you're in the customer's environment, any player that needs to be connected to Wi-Fi will show up here. And there's a random Nokia that's in hotspot mode close to my home, apparently. So yeah, the hotspot devices will show up here. You would select the players that you want by just ticking the box, and then you select the Wi-Fi network that you want, type in the password, and then you'll be able to push that Wi-Fi SSID and password to all the selected players at once. Once you've done that, then you can go over to the guided setup again, and you'll be able to continue with the setup. So when you click next, it will ask you to select the device that you want to configure. And as you can see here, when I click on a device, it allows me to change the friendly name to it. So it will populate the MAC address of each of the BluOS enabled devices. And I will just refer to them as BluOS enabled devices or players during this presentation, because this utility tool spans across BlueSound, NAD, PSB, as well as BlueSound Professional. So anything that is run by the BluOS operating system will show up and can be configured in this utility. And after you're done going through each player and giving it a friendly name, you can go ahead and click next. So you do have to select all the players that you want. So on this next page, you'll see here, now that your devices have friendly names and you want to configure them on the network, you can choose to change the player from DHCP to static, and you can give them their relative static IP addresses, gateway, subnet mask, and the primary and secondary DNSs. For the sake of this presentation and my home's integrity, I'm going to leave them on DHCP. And if you're struggling to figure out what player you're actually configuring, we do have the identify section over here. It was on the previous page as well, but I'll touch on it here. So naturally, when you take a unit out of the box for the first time, it's just going to have its factory name with a combination of its MAC address. But here you can get the player to play a sound, or you can get the LEDs to flash. The LED flashing is a really worthwhile addition, because I don't know about you guys, but installing a lot of NADCI products all stacked up in a rack, it's hard to know exactly which one you're working on at the time, and you can just make its LEDs flash so you know where you're at and what product you're actually working on. Once you've established all that information, you can go ahead and hit next. So for some reason, if you wanted to upgrade or downgrade the existing players through the configuration utility to a different firmware version, you can do that here. So when you turn on upgrade firmware, it will automatically give you the latest firmware version. There's no need to download a firmware packet or anything. As long as everything, your computer, the players themselves are connected to the internet, it will just download that version of firmware from the BluOS servers. So everything in my home is already on the latest firmware, so I'm just going ahead and turn it off. And if for any reason you want the players to stay on a specific firmware version, you can disable upgrades in this portion of the setup. So the customer won't get that message that pops up in the BluOS controller saying there's an upgrade available. Do you want to delay 24 hours or do you want it now? So I want to keep upgrading my players at this point, so I'm going to keep the current setup. And if you have one player set up already, on this next page, you can copy all the presets from that player to all the other players in the ecosystem as well. So you don't have to go into each individual unit and whatever you had at their favorite radio station with preset 1, favorite playlist, and so forth, you can just copy those presets across to other players in the ecosystem. And I'm going to get an error message because I haven't actually selected any players because everything's already set up. So that's the end of the guided setup. So we'll come back over to the player dashboard. And now that we're back on the player dashboard, all of this information probably makes a little bit more sense. So as you can see here, the device, friendly name, its factory model number. It gives you a picture of what type of player it actually is. And talking about NAD, you can see that I've got NAD AV receiver, and I'm able to configure it the same as any BlueSound player. So Over on the right hand side here, we've got an actions toolbar. So within that actions toolbar, you can do this for an individual player or with a lot of options. Some of those we've already touched on in the guided setup, or you can select all the players and then you can do a bulk device action up here. So selecting all the players, I can upgrade the firmware to all the players. I can reboot all the players, which I'm not going to do because nobody wants to sit here staring at me waiting for players to reboot. Copy their presets, or you can hit more and you can set the LED state for all these players. So if you've had customers that for some reason don't like the LEDs on their BlueSound players, you can change the LED state from normal to dim to off. So the customer doesn't have to have LED flashing at them in the middle of the night. The upgrade settings, as we touched on before, you can enable and disable firmware upgrades. You can set their initialized state. So if you're not aware of what the official term initialized means within the BluOS ecosystem, it's when you connect a unit to the network for the first time and it comes up underneath its needs setup. So setting the initialized state will actually take away that needs setup message that pops up underneath the player. So you can actually start and complete the entire setup process for all the players in an ecosystem without ever touching the BluOS controller. I would recommend opening up the BluOS controller after you've done this setup, just to ensure that everything is correct and to show the end user how to use the controller. But as an integrator with this on your laptop, when you're on the job, you never need to actually open up the BluOS controller. And in here, you can actually set the volume limits of all the players as well. So you can adjust them as you can see here, as well as forcing hotspot mode or factory reset all the players as well. So now that I've touched on the factory reset, if for some reason you need to go back into a job and you need to factory reset all the players, you can back up all of the configurations for all the players that are on the job. So the backup itself will give you everything you see here. So it will remember the MAC address of the player and it will keep the friendly name. It'll remember if you had the player into DHCP or static, its current firmware version, its initialized state, its LED state, and its presets, as well as its volume limiters. So this is a nice, easy way for everybody to export a backup of the whole entire job. And this comes in handy if the customer changes ISP providers and they get a new modem and you need to go out there and reconnect their whole entire system onto the new network, or if they're moving home, or if they've just got some sort of weird bug and you need to mass reset and reset up the devices. It makes our jobs a lot easier. The other handy feature that you can do to an individual player, you can't do this en masse, but you can choose in an individual player, is audio notifications. So this is a brand new feature that came along with the configuration utility. So in audio notifications, you're able to upload 5 MP3 files, max 10 megabits per file. And you're able to activate that notification within that BluOS system by sending this API string. I'll show that on the screen now. And I will share that in this meeting's chat as well. So anybody that's interested in this API string can copy it. I'll do that now. And what that will allow you to do is using a doorbell system or any other type of API activation through a third-party control system, you'll be able to make tones or recorded messages, or even if the customer has a favorite footy theme song that they want to play every single time their doorbell rings, all of those possibilities are now available within the configuration utility. And I believe that was the last feature on the player dashboard there. The table view here gives you the complete overview, the firmware, the network, and as you can see here, within the network table view, you can see what players are connected to Wi-Fi and what are connected to Ethernet. And we've also got transport as well. So you can see here what the player is currently playing, and you can adjust the volume levels of that player, play, pause, stop, skip track, left and right. And you can also configure some grouping here if you wanted to do all that from the player dashboard. Okay, so that's actually it, guys. That is a nice and quick rundown of the BluOS Configuration Utility. We're open to answering questions now. I can see that there has been a couple of questions here already. Alexis, thank you for joining us. So I don't have a Vault 2i player in my setup, no, but with the Vault 2i, I don't believe the configuration utility allows you to access the internal hard drive of the unit itself. It's still going to be the standard method of while you're on a computer that is on the same network, you go through the network shares and find the internal hard drive of the Vault, and you create a soft backup by copy and paste, or within the BluOS app itself. If you've got a 2 terabyte hard drive connected to the back of the Vault, you can create a backup, but that 2 terabyte hard drive will become not necessarily unusable, but it will create an exact mirror copy of the internal hard drive of the Bluesound Vault, which will flash that hard drive into a Linux format. So that hard drive will only be able to be used when plugged into the back of the Vault and created a backup or restore a backup. Hope that answers your question. You're welcome.
While we wait for more questions to come in, just to give you all an update of the next step. So you'll be receiving an email directly from Bluesound with the download link to the utility tool. So like I mentioned initially, this is specifically designed for integrators. So which means you won't find a download link for this utility tool anywhere on the website. It needs to come directly from us or from the team at Bluesound. So mostly the next week, the middle of next week, you'll get an email from Bluesound support, which gives you the steps on how to download the utility tool. If you hit any roadblocks, feel free to reach out to your account managers or even to me or Paul, and we should be able to help you out. I think we have more questions here.
And yes, we do. So Mike and Sean have a similar question, so I will answer both at the same time. So no, you cannot use the configuration utility remotely unless you install a NUC on site and have this program installed that only you can access, because you are going to have a custom username and login to log into the configuration utility, and the only remote monitoring that's available is through the Bluesound Professional range, and that's with I believe the program is called Excite. Let's have a look here. So I can actually show you guys what that looks like very quickly. And it has to be quick because this is not It's not part of the BluOS Configuration Utility. So this is what it looks like. I actually don't have any BlueSound Professional equipment, but as you can see here within the Amber range, Wirestorm is also used on Excite Connect. And when we add a new device, you've got BlueSound Professional here as a device to add. So within the BlueSound Professional range, you can add these and it will give you live monitoring as long as that player is connected to the network. You will be able to see if the player has dropped offline, how long it's dropped offline for, and you can even control the player remotely through this Excite program. If you want to know more deep dive on this one, we can set up another session at another time for it. But that's in a nutshell. Yes, BlueSound Professional, you can. BlueSound, NAD, and PSB, it does not have that option, purely because of their intended environments that those separate products are supposed to be installed into. Hopefully that answers both of your questions, Sean and Mark. Was there any other questions in regards to the configuration utility? I can imagine that even opening it up for the first time, it seems pretty simple, but after going through that detailed setup explanation, everyone should be fine with it. And once everybody gets the link to their new login for the utility, have a play around with it. And I'm not disappearing after this webinar. You'll be able to reach out to me. We can go through the utility together, even on a live job as you're using it. So, yeah. And everyone will have access to this recording afterwards as well.
If there are no further questions, I think let's call it off. Thanks everyone once again for joining us. Feel free to reach out if you've got any other queries in the meantime. Thank you guys. Thanks once again.